Hi, hello, welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. The second week trying to stream it on Patreon, so check out patreon.com/southboundsports. I'm going to try to add some extra content, but we're having some audio issues, so we'll have to try again next week in terms of getting some extra audio clips on here so that both of us can hear them. It'll be a little bit easier to comment on them. But you had another tough week last week. You want to go ahead and kick off the show with that?
Yeah, we had some opportunities to stay in the game. I mean, the final score looked a lot worse than the way that the game had actually played out. So we ended up losing 28-0. But there were two plays that were really busted right off the smack. We had where they caught like a hitch and just their guy was faster than anyone else we had and just ran right down the sideline. And we had some issues with our angle pursuit, and they scored. And then a little while later, we had an opportunity to sack the quarterback. He broke out of the tackle, scrambled, threw it downfield, caught it, and they scored again. So I mean, that put them up 2 scores. And our kids battled, but you know, you put a drive on, get inside the 10, fumble the ball. You know, have a couple interceptions. It's just you can't do that consistently and expect to come out on the good side.
Yeah, that's tough coming back. How do you plan to bounce back next week or this week, I guess?
Well, this is going to be another challenging week for us, and that's why as we're looking at the schedule, it's like there's never an easy week for us. So you know, as we're going down, it's just continuing to try to polish some of the stuff offensively that if we can keep everyone on the same page and execute. And I think we may have a chance, but that margin of error is so slim because the school that we're playing is in a co-op, so they have 2 schools combined, and so I mean naturally they're covering a higher demographic. They're covering more potential athletes that can potentially play. It definitely stacks the deck against us.
Well, good luck, and we'll be checking back in on you next week.
Sounds good.
We got big time news from the NFL. Our boy Geno Smith. Do you remember him? He came back and he had a hell of a game for the Seahawks last night. And how crappy would you feel if you were Russell Wilson, right? You leave the Seahawks, go to the Broncos. You do how many pump-up videos? He was doing like pump-up videos all the time. He had like Peyton Manning. They were in the locker room. They were doing like all these. I guess they're for social media. And you come out and you lose the first game to a guy that, I mean, even on our show, we were talking about the Seahawks possibly having to make a run at like Mason Rudolph. Like that's how far their chances had fallen. Like when Garoppolo got locked in, people were like, well, the Niners didn't really want to give him to the Seahawks. They want to make him ride it out with Geno Smith. And then it makes me worry for my boy Zach Wilson because maybe the Jets franchise is just a dumpster fire. Maybe they're the Cleveland Browns, you know, of the what division would that be? The North? No, the Browns are the North, so that would be the East, right? And the AFC, like just ruining quarterbacks because he comes out and someone had tweeted that Eli Manning, remember, was benched for him, and people thought that coach was like crazy at the time. And now Geno's finally, I think, got injured. Didn't he get his jaw broken?
I think
that's what happened. I can't remember exactly. But it's taken him a while to even get a chance. Because that had to be how many years ago? Because he came in from West Virginia, and I want to say he played for, was it Bill Stewart, the coach after Rich Rod? It was like in 2013 or 14, I believe.
Yes.
So it's been a while. I mean, I don't know exactly when he left West Virginia because they kind of went to the Big 12 and were forgotten here on the East Coast. But, I'm going to bring them up later in the show. But I will say that with Geno, now, as a Seahawks fan, I'm not a Seahawks fan, but as a Seahawks fan, you have to be pumped to watch your team because Pete Carroll seems to be on it. They were already writing his like retirement letter for him. I saw an article that said like Pete Carroll brought his legacy with the Legion of Boom and all this stuff. And now it's like, maybe they can keep winning with Geno Smith. And people are going to say like, oh, I guess they're still here. But did you watch that game last night? And what did you think of it?
I mean, not so. How many drugs do you have to do to be like, yeah, kick a 65-yard field goal to win when you have this quarterback? If you're Russell Wilson, you don't cry, you don't shed a single tear because that contract's guaranteed.
They did make I was going to ask you, would you have kicked the field goal there?
Hell no. I didn't. You don't bring them in as the court. Like, I think the first thing you do is they completed the pass and got it within 4th and 4. It was like, you have all 3 timeouts, burn your timeout, get a good play, find something that you like, and get the first down.
Yeah, because what did they do? They let the clock run out, right? Or they let it run down?
They just let it run down. They kicked the field goal, missed it, and then used all their timeouts. So, like, it completely hurt them being able to conserve any time. Like, even if you burn a timeout, find your best play, or, I mean, I'll even say, like, if knowing the situation that you're going to be like, we're going to hit this play, and then you're already thinking of what that follow-up is going to be on 4th down because it's 2-down territory. Like, it's not like there was 40-mile-an-hour winds going that you could kick it and it could be a legitimate shot. Like, that was going to be even further than his furthest field goal.
That was a second NFL record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think you got to at least go for the first down, right? I realized it was 4th down, so maybe. I mean, he had confidence in him.
But I think, like, even if you decide, like, there was still like a minute 30 or so left. So if you get another play, and you, even in the worst case that you don't, you still have all 3 timeouts that you can get a stop. Like, they're going to run the ball to run the clock. And you have a chance to get the ball back and still get yourself in field goal range.
Yeah, that's the one thing where I don't think they really wanted to get the ball back to the Seahawks. And to me, let some clock run down, but then run your play. You get the first down, you're pretty much in field goal range. And you have, with as much time as they had the entire field. It wasn't like they had to run an out route to get the clock stopped. So, like, take the throw, and even the announcers, I normally don't listen to them, but they were saying, like, how much confidence are you showing that you don't have in Russell Wilson right now? Is like, he's standing there, and you're like, you know, we can't go with you, man. We got to go with our gut and do this other thing. And to me, that's like, is that going to be his entire tenure there? Where they signed him forever. So are they going to be bringing in a new coach if they have a bad year? I just don't know. Because they extended him after, right? When he got there. Didn't they just extend him a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Which was insane. And I said, like, you're losing early in the year? That's Russell Wilson's best. He's been fading down the stretch for the past 5 years now. Or so. I can't remember if it's exactly 5. But he's been fading down the stretch. And you're losing to a team that you should have beat. I would expect the Broncos to be heavy favorites. I don't remember what the line actually was, but on the other hand, switching gears now from Geno Smith to other NFL Week 1 highlights, the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky in the offense, man, not as much as what I expected, but they get the job done. They go to overtime with the Bengals.
Well, time out. What were your expectations?
Well,
with Mitch Trubisky as your quarterback.
Matt, you heard that Roethlisberger, you heard rumors coming from camp that Roethlisberger has been limited, which everyone has known, right? So now they're going to be able to spread things out a bit. It's not going to be Ben back in the pocket, only throwing like dink and dunks, you know? So now you're able to take like some deep shots or whatever and maybe open up some run game lanes. Because I think that's what the issue's been, right? You're only running like these lower routes because your deep balls are like hit or miss, or could be just interceptions. And so everyone's tightening up to the line of scrimmage, which then kills your run game. And the only way you can beat that is if you have a running back then that can stretch the backfield like Le'Veon Bell did. And they lost that for a while, and then Ben's offense has kind of just sputtered. Where I'm like, Mitch Trubisky maybe with Najee Harris, coming out. They say he gets injured. Have you seen an update on him? I haven't looked. But it's
I didn't see... it seemed like it was mild, but I don't think that there was anything major with Harris.
And our other boy, TJ Watt, injured again. And now I'm wondering if he's on the Christian McCaffrey plan, right? Where you're just injured all the time, but you're the face of the franchise, so no one's going to say anything, right? I think it was a tear, though, wasn't it?
Yes.
So maybe not his fault. It's not like he strained a hammy doing like a jump as he ran to the sideline to get out of bounds, like McCaffrey last year. I saw McCaffrey go down in the game, and I'm like, are you kidding me? He's going to be injured first week. But I'm pretty sure he didn't go out for long. But that's another offense, too, where it's like the Panthers, I expected them to do something on offense with Matt Rule. Now it's like, all right, maybe he'll be at Nebraska next year. Because you bring in Baker Mayfield. And actually now, because last year I was saying like, hey, maybe Matt Rule can come to Michigan, get the offense rolling, with some modern stuff. It'd be nice, like if wonder like what would happen with Harbaugh's defense if Harbaugh left it through the NFL and Matt Rule just stepped in and fixed the offense, And now it's like, oh, I'm so glad Harbaugh stayed because the offense looks pretty good with JJ. And Baker Mayfield looked like he was trying to do his best, but the plays were not there. Like I've never seen play calling in the NFL where like nobody's open, and I'm like waiting for it. Like, all right, well they can't cover them every play, can they? Maybe they can, because they're playing the Browns, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what the heck is going on? Baker's like, yeah, I really wish I could have got it done, and I'm like, the Browns shouldn't even be. Like, if you were taking a bet, who would be better, Jacoby Brissett or Geno Smith? Like, quarterbacks that are starting out of left field. I might have led with Jacoby Brissett. But now it's like, well, Geno's played way better. And Brissett, I don't even know how much he actually did. The Browns didn't really look good. They relied on him. Chubb got a lot of deep runs, which helped their offense along. And it's like, man. I thought for sure Baker would come around, and it's not really his fault. And now I'm like, Matt Rule, does he make it through the season? That's my pick, because he's been on the hot seat. They keep throwing the weight behind him. But I don't think that you can just be like, hey, we're giving you other quarterbacks. You're kind of blaming it on the quarterbacks. This is like his fifth quarterback, right? Running his offense that he's known for getting guys open. It would be different if the Panthers had dudes like open and Baker's just missing them, right? I think there was only one play. It was a Robbie Anderson like deep ball where he broke wide open and it was for a touchdown. That I remember clearly as, wow, that's an open receiver. But normally it's like he's just not getting there. So those are like my three like non-starting quarterbacks. Like if you're trying to win the job, Geno, I give an A+2. Jacoby Brissett, I give around the B. He didn't really impress me. Baker Mayfield, I'm just going to leave him ungraded because I don't think you can really grade a performance. He hit the deep ball, which would be a good thing, but there was not enough of the offense rolling to win a game I thought they should have won. And I think that's on the coaching. What game stood out to you this weekend?
Well, I thought the Steelers game did, but it was more so that they performed the way that I thought they would. Like they went in, they were going to rely on the defense, they were going to rely on Najee Harris, and I think that when Higgins went out with the concussion, I thought that kind of changed a little bit because it took one of the weapons away from Cincy, so they were really able zero in a little bit more on Chase and kind of helped them out. But I mean, they created a pile of turnovers and basically just had Trubisky in that role that I said he was going to be able to be successful in, where it was like, just don't get yourself beat.
And they also had the pick six, which was big because the offense wasn't really doing much. Didn't they have a pick six? Wasn't that Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
So, and then they also blocked the field goal, which they should have lost the game. So when they blocked it, and then the Steelers had theirs hit the upright, I thought, here we go, another week one tie. Wasn't it like 2 or 3 years ago we had the Browns tie week one? And I'm like, yes. You got to be kidding me. These are the team. They were just in the Super Bowl. They could have won the Super Bowl. And now you're going to give everyone a bunch of false hope because they're going to think, oh my gosh, the Steelers are right there with Trubisky. And I hear people talking like Mike Tomlin come out and say, hey, Trubisky's going to be our guy all year round. Like for an entire year, we want Pickett to sit, which to me makes sense. But I think Pickett's already an older quarterback. And I'm still sticking with my gut where I say halfway through the season, somewhere they make the switch, like later, like maybe week 9 or 10. It depends on the record because I said this earlier. I'm not really bringing the record into it, but if the Steelers most likely are like 4-4 at that point, I think and the offense is doing bad, and you think you have a chance to make the playoffs. I think you want to get Pickett some run. I think he has a better chance to start if they have a better record for that same reason, because you get them into the playoffs. If the Steelers are losing and they're like 2-7 or whatever it'd be, 2-6, I don't think that they necessarily put Pickett in. Because if the line's getting beat up and Trubisky's getting sacked a bunch, you don't want your young quarterback just getting a beating. So that's the one thing where I think they might take a flip. But I have a feeling they're going to be right around playoff mode, and they try to use Pickett to kind of boost their offense.
But I thought they said they weren't playing Pickett at all this year.
Matt, they always say that.
He's a rookie, so they don't always say it. And not like they're going in being like, Rudolph's going to be our starter.
Well, when you have Ben Roethlisberger, but when you have Trubisky, they said like, yeah, Pickett's not going to play at all. But I'm saying I'm sticking with my guns, and I'm saying they are going to end up playing him because they're going to need a shot in the arm, because they're going to be like, we're going to make the playoffs with Trubisky, and that's our ceiling. When they're going to say we need to get this other young guy in and give us a shot. Now, if they're losing, then I think Trubisky just plays the whole year. They try to build in some weapons, and then Pickett most likely starts next year. And who knows what happens with Rudolph. That's my gut feeling. But what did you think of the catch in overtime by, was it Johnson? The one-handed grab, which was just insane.
It was really good.
Really good? As a coach, what would you rate that?
I would rate that as, I was disappointed he didn't get 2 hands on it. He only used 1.
Didn't he have to use 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, given the scenario, that was a huge play for them.
Well, the one thing that's crazy to me is I hear Steelers fans that are like complaining. They're like, oh man, if that was Jamar Chase or something, that highlight would have been all over. I'm like, guys, the Steelers have players get hyped up all the time. They're one of the most popular franchises. What are you talking about? Like, do you not remember the Killer Bees days?
Well, it's not like he caught it and then scored a touchdown or broke a tackle and scored. Like, it was a first down.
Yeah, didn't he fall out of bounds?
Yeah.
And they might even had to review it, which I think catches like that are awesome.
Well, they did review it.
Yeah, so why knock the man? I think it's a good catch. I don't think you have to compare him to other receivers. If you want that, go ahead, become a top 5 receiver, lead the Steelers to the playoffs. You can't not make the playoffs and make catches like that and then complain about it that you're not getting enough run. But anything else you have on that game?
No.
Any other games you want to talk about quick before I get into my last one?
I was surprised to see the turnaround. I thought that it was going to be a bigger blowout with the Saints game. and completely forgetting that the Falcons signed Marcus Mariota in the offseason. I thought they were going to have to start Corral right off the bat. I was just brain farted. Like, oh yeah, definitely. Like, though Atlanta never has any defense, we'll be in great shape. And then I got to start watching like the score stream, and I'm like, holy crap, the Saints are down like a gazillion points. Like, here we go. And then what happens? Jameis Winston, hungry, starts firing touchdown passes to Michael Thomas, not on slant routes, gets those 2 touchdowns, and he gets to eat that W.
Well, that's one where the Falcons, I think that was like fool's gold for them, because I think they just kind of caught the Saints off guard. But they did look much better than I expected. I'm not sold on Mariota because I think they had the lead in spite of him. Because I did watch that game. He didn't really do much to really stand out. Like, it didn't seem like, well, he's really hitting all the shots and stuff, But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The last one I have here to talk about, and I'll see if you have any more. My Green Bay Packers, man. Aaron Rodgers did not have the team ready to play. They looked dead on the sideline, and they got absolutely killed.
How shocked are you?
Not shocked at all. Because whenever you sign an old man to an old man contract where you make him rich, he's not hungry. You need to have a wife at home that you're trying to stay away from, like Tom Brady. Where you're like, oh man, I retire and I can't even stand there for more than 2 weeks. So I have to get back to the field and I have to work hard, because the harder I work, the less I have to see her in the off season. I play deep into the playoffs. That has to be his mindset, right?
Apparently.
Aaron Rodgers has none of that. His family doesn't even want to talk to him. So he's like, oh, I'll just hang out at home,
Well, yeah, it looks like he belongs at a soup kitchen.
He is turning gray. He's like around, is he like my age? I'm like, am I turning that gray? I'm trying to grow my hair out. It looks like crazy on the live stream. So sign up if you want to see that on patreon.com/southboundsports. But I will say that he looks old. He looks tired. And I'm just waiting for him to kind of just not come back in. They let Jordan Love come in, and there was kind of like an energy there that they didn't have with Rodgers. Although, to his point, there was a deep shot wide open to the rookie, was it Watson? And hits his hands. He just dropped it. And I thought, what are you doing? Are you trying to make the team? Like, Devontae Adams would have had a touchdown, and then I think the Packers are back in the game. It kind of ignites them. But when dudes are dropping the ball, and Aaron Rodgers called him out in like the offseason, and then people threw shade like, oh, Aaron Rodgers, maybe you should work out with your guys if you want them to get better. And he's like, no, I'm making money sitting at home. Why would I come and work out?
Calling out government conspiracies.
Yeah. It's like a catch-22 with them. Like, is he doing the right thing? No one knows, right? He's going on fighting the government, and it's like, buddy, make the team better. No one's paying tickets to go watch you do podcasts or whatever. So I just want to see what he's doing off the field. Like, he's not a Peyton Manning. I know he used to do the commercials, but you haven't really seen much of him. It's all Patrick Mahomes now. So he has to realize, right? Maybe that's why he went for the last big contract. And he'll just fade. Like, I almost wondered, like, if they have an awful season, do they just go with Love? Like, do they pull the trigger at some point if they start really bad like that? I don't know. Because it's weird, you sign a big contract.
But it's almost like if you're the Packers, you trade away Devontae Adams. You don't really bring in a lot of extra wide receiver help. So it's not like you brought in, like, oh, I'm getting rid of Adams so that we can sign these 2 or 3 extra people. It's like, for how many years has Aaron Rodgers bellyached and been like, I don't have anyone to throw to?
Yeah, but that's his fault. Like, he asked for more money after they said, like, our money's tight. Should we bring back Devontae Adams? He's like, maybe. But then he took the money so that they couldn't sign him. And then they're left with nothing. So it's 100% his fault. Like, how many times, like, did even Ben restructure his contract, or Tom Brady, like, yeah, I'm going to restructure, you know? And there's other guys that have done it. Aaron Rodgers did the opposite. He's like, I'm going to run you out of town, make me play with a bunch of rookies because that's all we can afford, and then I'm going to complain about it. That's where the Packers are at. So it's like not a fresh rebuild. I mean,
but I think also at the same time, like, the Packers have done nothing to show that they were going to spend it on the skill guys. So like, let's not try to spin this from like that's shame on you for taking the money. It's like, either I take the extra money and pad my contract late in my career, or the organization just pockets it and continues to give me crap to work with.
I don't know. I think it's the opposite. I think they were trying to bring in guys, but then whenever he doesn't restructure, because they've brought in defensive guys, and then they lost some other defensive guys too.
Well, again, defensive guys. It wasn't like, hey, we're trying to bring, like, there were no Adam Schefter. Hey, there's a receiver that's considering Green Bay. Like, none of it.
I don't know. I side on the Green Bay side as an owner, Matt. I'm saying it's working out pretty good for me because the Packers might not be good this year, so that means I get another year with my man Tom Brady, so I don't feel bad about it when they play each other. Because I got to cheer for my man, right? But I can't cheer against my own team because that's dumb, right? I'm in a weird situation. Tom Brady was supposed to retire. It's supposed to be nice and easy. Tom Brady retires. I own the Packers. Perfect. Same year. Now Tom Brady comes back. Luckily, Aaron Rodgers is already mucking up the Packers thing. So what's going to happen is going to take another 2-year transition probably. So the good thing is, though, the Steelers are probably rebuilding at the same time, right? So I'll have like no teams to cheer for if Tom Brady retires. It'll be a sad existence on the podcast. I'll just sit here and cry. Like my fantasy team, dude, started off so bad. I didn't even look at the score. Once I saw like a couple guys come through, I'm like, this is not good. This is not a good week. So I guarantee I lost. It would have taken a miracle after like the first half of the game for me to come back because my guys were doing so poor. And like even guys like Devonta Smith, the Eagles were doing so well. I don't think he caught a ball. So it's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be one of the big guys for them. Maybe not. Maybe I just overthought it. I have no idea. But for me, the football was good. My fantasy team, not so much. How are you feeling after that first week of football? Who do you think is going to go far? That would be a surprise.
I thought it was impressive how strong Buffalo came out the gate against the Rams. Like, I thought that was going to be a good matchup with the Rams defense, and Buffalo just absolutely shredded them.
Oh yeah, they killed them. And that made me think the Bills might be the team to beat. Everyone's talking about how good the Chiefs looked against your boy Kyler Murray, right? But the Bills, man.
Yeah.
The Bills just had a power to them that the Chiefs do not have.
They're like, oh, we're going to cover everyone.
We're going to crush you at the line of scrimmage, and that's it. And that was the champion world champs, like the Rams, right? I think they said that the Rams rebuilt their line, though, maybe. Or no, that was my man Tom Brady again. Thinking of him, which they play good, and it's always great whenever the Cowboys go down week 1. They're
already eliminated from playoff contention.
They didn't even score any points. They're running the Iowa offense.
Injured.
They're like, hey, we're done. And meanwhile, Tom Brady's like, yeah, we're struggling a bit out here, or whatever. That's kind of like, to me, the Rams kind of looked like the Cowboys, and I'm like, are they just dead this year? They're talking about Stafford had a secret surgery or something.
Well, now you have like Julio Jones got on a TB12 diet. And he's like running jet sweeps and doing all this stuff. Like, haven't seen him do it since he was like in his early career at Atlanta.
I told you, Julio, with Tom Brady, once you get there, you settle down. Like, did you see Antonio Brown? Remember when he took his shirt off at the game? Like, he's in great shape playing with Tom Brady. It works, man.
Yeah, performance-enhancing drugs.
Whoa. TB doesn't eat that. He doesn't eat anything that's not natural. He only eats natural foods. That's why he has that one person that kind of follows them around. Right?
He has a compliance person with him, like Harbaugh.
Well, he probably does. The Harbaugh move. That's a great move. People underestimate that, Matt. Then you don't put yourself in any weird situations like Urban Meyer. Do you think if he had a guy following him around, he would have kicked his kicker? No. The guy would have said, like, yo, Herbs, nah. And he would have said, not even like a hacky sack type kick. And he would say, not even that. And then he's like, all right, but remember, I am the head coach. And I will kick you maybe when my guy's not here. So make the next one, right? So you need. You're laughing, but that's what you need. You need a guy to keep you in check. Tom Brady's that guy. You know his wife has like a nutritionist or whatever. So like people pretend that's Tom Brady doing it. She's a model. It probably works for both of them, right? Because you can't eat his diet if his wife was like grilling cheeseburgers. Like, oh yeah, eating another one here. Well, man, I have some leftover steak. Because if she was having leftovers, Tom Brady would probably be eating them up just like any other dad. Right? Why are you laughing? You don't eat leftovers?
No, I only eat fresh.
Yeah, he probably throws that out. Or I bet the chef. See, if the chef's smart, the chef is a big guy. He cooks Tom Brady's food. Tom Brady eats it. Then if there's leftovers, then the chef eats, right? That's how you portion it out.
Purpose is just like, hey, I'm on the TV12 diet too. I'm eating 2 cheeseburgers.
Or the smart man would be, they tell you to like only buy portions. So like you only buy tiny plates at your house so that you feel like a gigantic fatty if you try to go up. And you're like, I'm on my 4th plate of this. Of this gumbo at the house or whatever you're cooking. If you're Brian Kelly, you're eating gumbo now. So you're like, 4 plates? Oh, this makes me feel bad. Like, do I want to go out like Charlie Weiss? Probably not. That's what you got to think of. So Tom Brady has the guy, but there are ways around it. You can do it at your own house. Get rid of all like your gigantic crock pots and stuff and just buy smaller. Because then you're like, do I really want to make 2 of those? Nah. Like George Foreman made the tiny grills, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
You can only fit like 1 burger on them. So, like that's going to be like a lunch type thing or something. If you make it for dinner or you're trying to cook for more than one person, you just have to share it. It's a quick way to lose weight. That's my tip. My workout tip / Tom Brady tip in the middle of the show. You don't need to work out. I mean, I guess you probably need to work out. There's all those scams I see now. It's like, hey, take a CBD gummy. You'll lose weight. Or you drink like apple cider vinegar or something I keep seeing. It's like, yeah, just drink this. And then you'll lose weight. It's like, why? Does it crush all your taste buds so you don't want to eat? What'd you say?
Just don't eat until you're thin.
Yeah, you got to work out. That's why Antonio Brown and like these wide receivers, like you got to run a little bit, I think. That's the thing. Which, speaking of me, man, I've been getting my activity levels. It's about like a month and a half now. Didn't I start that in August? And I will say, my watch health, man, I'm back into whatever it is. What's the medium one? Oh, I'm in fair health now. So much better than what I was doing, bro, whenever I didn't get around. But the heat's coming down here, so it's getting much better. That's my thing. Got to stay active. So I'll be checking in. I keep forgetting to check in. I ran the 10K, which I talked about on the show. And then I was going to check in with something else, but I can't remember what I had a story too, but I kept forgetting to bring it in until after the show. But that's my thing. Trying to stay active, and then we'll see how it goes. Taking that with my my hair growing out too. Because you can't be gigantically out of shape and then have long hair, or you just look like a slob, right?
Like Meatloaf.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Are you talking about Fight Club Meatloaf?
Yes, that Meatloaf.
Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
All right, that's all I have too. I do like. Oh no, I have one more thing because I texted to you. But I'm watching a game, right? And previously, like getting ready for the show or the show last week, I kept seeing that Ozzy Osbourne's performing at this NFL game, right? The halftime of the Thursday night game, I believe it was what it was supposed to be. I think that was the one. So they're hyping it up like Ozzy Osbourne's super old. He's going to retire. They're doing a big halftime show at the game. It's in LA. I think that's where the game was, right? And it's like one of his last shows in the United States. So I thought, oh, are they going to try to do a new thing where the NFL does like the halftime Super Bowl show, but they bring it into the first game of the year, right? They try to get like a bigger band. Like Ozzy's pretty popular. He had his own TV show and stuff. No, completely wrong. They showed at max, people were trying to time it. I think it was less than 15 seconds they showed. And I thought, why did they advertise it so much? Like, were they using it as a way to get people into the stadium?
Maybe.
Because, well, that's what I'm thinking. Because LA typically has poor fans, right? They have fair weather fans. Everyone knows it. That's why they keep losing the franchise, and yet they get sucked back in. The NFL does, because they're like, well, maybe this team will work out again. Right? The Raiders go there, they leave. The Raiders go there, they leave. The Rams go there, they leave. The Rams go there. And it's like, all right, well, we need a team in LA. Maybe we'll bring the Chargers in. And like, we need someone to stick. And I'm wondering if they're like, maybe if we bring a performer in. Because I saw a bunch of guys posting videos still. I looked it up. And they were just there for Ozzy. And I'm like, well, this is weird, right? Because people bought tickets to the game, but it lined up perfectly. Like, it might be his last show. Something could happen, you know? So let's go see Ozzy, and while we're there, we also get to see a football game. It had to be a quick set, though. Like, how many songs could he play in, like, 15, 20 minutes? Like, 3 or 4? 2.
Because some with all of his instrumentals and everything else.
Yeah, he plays, what, War Pigs? It's like 7 minutes. Would be funny if he just came out and played, like, a Black Sabbath song that was, like, super long. Like Megalomania or something. I think there's, like, 10 or 13 minutes, and, like, that was it. People were like, where's Crazy Train? What are you doing? But I don't know. To me, I hated it. Because you know what they cut to? They cut to a pre-made video that was the Dr. Dre song. But it wasn't Dr. Dre. It was some other guy playing piano. I forget what the song's called. But it's like the one that says, like, Guess Who's Back or whatever. And then it was, like, doing all, like, these other, like, rappers and actors and stuff showing their support for their favorite NFL team. And I thought, you hype up Ozzy, yet you show me this weird fake TV montage, which I saw at least 5 more times over the weekend. I swear they kept showing it on commercial breaks for other games. Or maybe it was the halftime of every game. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I can't remember. But I did see it multiple times. But that was like it. They're like, hey, here's Ozzy. Well, let's cut to this other thing. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Who's this for? No one wants to see a commercial. People tune in for the Super Bowl halftime show. Sometimes they tune in for the Super Bowl commercials. Not so much anymore with social media, because people like leak the commercials online now, and they try to do all this other stuff. And now it's like really only the game and the halftime show, right? I feel like in the 90s, they really hyped up commercials, and that's how they made their money. I feel like the commercial part of it's kind of gone away. People are just sick of commercials. And so now it's like the halftime show. And I thought maybe they would do something cool by bringing in like halftime show into regular season games. Because that would be cool, right? Much better than listening to some dude talk about highlights for 15 minutes. But that's just me. But that's all I had for the NFL. You want to get into college football now?
Absolutely.
All right, dude. I have a question before we even get started here. Let me bring it up so make sure I got my numbers right. Let's do a comparison here. I have 3 coaches.
Okay.
Based on the offense, Which coach would you rather have? I'm going to read it twice. So Coach A, his record right now is 1-1, averaging 158 yards per game, 7 points per game. Coach 2, or
better
Coach
have
B.
a good defense.
Coach B, record 1-2, yards per game, 207, points per game, 10-6. So they have one more loss, but more points per game, a couple, and then Coach C, record 1-2, yards per game, 492, and then points per game, 36. So Coach A again, record 1-1, 158 yards per game and 7 points a game. Coach B, 1-2, yards per game, 207, and then 10 points per game. And Coach C, also 1-2, yards per game, 492, and points per game, 36. I text it to you so you can read it because I know it's audio show. Do you have any guesses who the coaches are, first off? And then who would you pick as your best of the lot right now?
Well, I didn't know which direction. I feel like regardless, I'm going to be set up here.
What's that supposed to mean?
No, knowing you, there's some kind of like backdoor gotcha on it.
All right, go ahead.
Some of this is skewed because I think like if you're scoring 34 but giving up 60, like that doesn't help your situation. So I'm just gonna random stab and say B. So
you would pick B with a 1-2 record, even though it's a losing record. You're only getting 207 yards a game though, 10 points per game. The other guy is getting 492 yards a game. That's pretty solid. It's a lot of yards, right?
That's a lot of yards, but you can still end up on the losing end, scoring a lot of points and having the stats.
Do you have any guesses before I give them to you?
No.
I'll give you a hint. One of them has been fired already.
Scott Frost.
Which one do you think he is?
Scoring points.
He is Coach C, which I told you I've been saying on the show, and I didn't have any stats to back it up, which is why I did this little test here. Scott Frost has been awesome with the offense. Of course, they've been playing lower level teams. People are hyping them up. I've even seen things of like, hey, I wish the expanded playoff was this year, as now a Sun Belt with a couple of big wins, right? Over Nebraska and isn't App State in the Sun Belt? Like, didn't they beat Texas A&M?
Yeah.
So, like, now they're like, maybe Sun Belt would have been in the playoffs this year and had a good run. Who knows? And that's why I want the expanded playoff. That's why I kind of want auto bids, because you can say, oh, those teams are going to get blown out. People thought A&M would have blown them out, right? Nah, not so fast. But, so Scott Frost fired, our big topic. Offense, he focused on the offense for whatever reason. It didn't matter. You got to win games, and you do that with defense. Like, you can't go out there and just slaughter teams, but then also give up a lot of points, like you said. Coach A, 1-1, yards per game, 158, points per game, 7. I think a lot of people are going to guess that is Iowa. And so 7 of those points, bro, they weren't even offensive. They had 2 safeties. So that's even worse. I didn't even do the offense because I'm like, I'm going to pick like the easiest stats here, right? So Iowa, 1-1. They only played the 2 games. And if you're looking at it, I know Nebraska's had a worse history, but their offense, I would think that Nebraska would have had, if you're going by confidence, they have the better chance going forward. And then, of course, Matt, Coach B, I'm glad you picked Coach B because that is you. Matty B, our very own.
See, there's that wild card that.
Well, I had to put it in perspective, man, because Scott Frost got fired, and so you originally said I'm going to go with A, but my gut says go with B. But then I was confused by that. So you wanted to go with A for some reason, which would have been the worst of the lot. That was before C was sent because I was still trying to tally up my numbers. Because Nebraska did score a lot of points, and I'm like, and let's be honest, my stats could be wrong. I pulled them from the website of the teams and then Max Preps for you. But I wanted to mix that in because I didn't know how you thought.
Because see, and that just goes to show, like with Nebraska, yeah, they're putting up the yards and they're moving the ball, but if you're giving up a lot more points too as a result, like you see that sometimes with teams that run a spread that they keep score, they have to keep scoring because the defense is just taking shots as well. And
I did this too, Matt, because I had an ulterior motive. I think you should hurry up and call Scott Frost and ask him to come on as an analyst. Because you have to get out fast. I'm sure Nick Saban's going to be on the phone, and his offense is pretty good. Could you imagine if he was helping you, another set of eyes on your offense? If you were putting up 400 yards a game, that'd be pretty sweet, right?
That'd be pretty cool.
So I think you should try to call him.
Well, did you see the ESPN piece on the Alabama assistants?
No, I didn't see that.
They were like kind of talking about how the Saban takes in these coaches and brings them in as analysts and teaches them the process, and then they come out and they're more successful. They're like, well, what was your salary when you got brought in as an analyst? And they're all like, 30,000, 30,000, like, and just completely sidestepping. Like, they're like, Butch Jones, when was your last year at Tennessee? Like, $4 million. So he gets fired. He's still getting paid $4 million from Tennessee, and then it's like collecting that $30,000 Alabama check. It's like $4 million, 30,000.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think that they can really pay those guys, because if you're getting paid as a coach, then you don't collect the buyout.
Yeah,
that's why a lot of teams like were wondering, like, hey, can you hire Charlie Weiss yet? Or like, who went to Kansas? Was it him?
Yeah.
And people were like celebrating. They're like, yeah, let's go. Or like Les Miles coming back. And it's like, let's get out from under some of these buyouts. So, and I'm sure you still have to pay some, but it's like the difference, right? So you hope that they get a better job so that your team's not on the hook. But I did bring up A&M because very surprisingly, and I didn't even talk about this on the College Football Kings podcast, which is my college podcast I've been doing. I haven't been promoted as much anymore yet because I'm still trying to get things going. I haven't had that much time coming up this weekend, so we'll see how it goes. People schedule weddings in football season, man. Always a nightmare, right? Why are you doing that to me? So we'll see, but it's still going on. I'm still getting that rolling, but I wanted to save this for the big show because you're on here with Jimbo Fisher. After the loss to App State, fans are, of course, upset, right? Not as much as like Brian Kelly getting blown off and people not showing up for his interview. Did you see that clip?
Yeah.
And he's like, said something about people showing up on time, and they're like, if you won, some games would show up on time for you. And then he was like, trying to be like pissed back, but it's like, bro, are you paying their salary? They don't have to come see you. If people aren't interested in your team because you suck, then what do you expect? I know that was like the Florida State last week, but Jimbo, someone had asked him about going to coach at like West Virginia.
Is his jack-o'-lantern out yet? Did he throw his jack-o'-lanterns out?
Well, the numbers they said was like A&M has such a high buyout that it would almost be insane. And I brought up the buyout thing before because it's like, if he leaves to coach another like team, West Virginia has another loss, embarrassing to Kansas. And they had already lost to Pitt. If Jimbo would just be like, you know what? I don't want the stress. I don't want the smoke anymore. The boosters are like, giving me a hard time. Let's cut a deal. I'm going to go to West Virginia. I'm sure West Virginia athletic director is not going to be like, you know what? We're not really interested, you know? I'm sure if the agent called and said like, hey, Jimbo wants to move. Because I hear people saying, well, that'll be the move. He's going to go home to West Virginia. He talked about how it was home. And you always want to go back home. Like, it was really
just subtly just start playing like Country Roads in all your interviews.
Well, it was weird because it was like, yeah,
like, I'm listening to my iPod.
He's like, I don't have any plans to go anywhere yet, but it would be nice to go back home, and West Virginia is my home, or whatever he said. The exact quote I don't remember, but I'm like, that's very specific, right? It's like, yeah, I always want to go back home. It's like, maybe you'll end up there, maybe not, because they always said like Nick Saban, isn't he from West Virginia? So it's like, he could be the guy, but like, it'd be funny if Jimbo Fisher went back there. and actually won a bunch of games. Because like A&M, you have all the pressure and they're paying the guys. And like I said earlier, you can pay them all. Are you going to keep them happy? Are you going to have all this stuff coming in? Because then it becomes like a business. And everyone keeps saying, well, it's going to be like the mini NFL. No, it's going to be like minor league baseball. Do the minor league baseball guys always try their best? Some of them. But how many other ones are at the point where they just don't give a shit? Right? Yeah. So I guarantee you start to pay them, and then they're more interested in like going out with friends or like hanging out with their girlfriend, like doing all this other stuff. Where before, they're not getting paid. They got to be hungry, right? Some teams like Michigan building around like, hey, if you come here, you're going to get money if you do well, right? They have their NIL thing, which I've heard right now in terms of like team supported full team NILs. It might be the highest paying in the country right now, which is like from On3. What's that new site? Which I think they're kind of guessing because Notre Dame's is private. So I don't know how they would know that Michigan would have more money than Notre Dame unless like they have someone in the know. But other than that, Harbaugh's been like, yeah, we have guys doing this, this, and this. Like JJ, I think, has his own Dunkin' Donuts order. It's like a strawberry donut and with sprinkles and like an iced coffee, I think. So if you want to get the JJ, you can go ahead and get that. It's like, all right, well, he's probably making good money if Dunkin' Donuts is picking up your order. Like how many other college guys have their own order at Dunkin' Donuts? I don't know, right? But that's the only one I've seen. Other schools are just like, hey, we're going to pay you. And then I never hear, like, I've never really seen an NIL from like A&M, right? I see him from other schools. Like I've seen the Quinn Ewers at Ohio State where he's doing that car dealership thing. I've seen like JJ's Dunkin' Donuts one. I've seen some of the Alabama ones. Like, was it Bryce Young? I mean, he won the Heisman, but he's doing a bunch of them. I've seen some of the ones down here, like NC State and some UNC ones, but those are local. Of course, those are expected. So I'm sure local people have seen A&M ones, but I haven't seen any like really national NIL or NIL like deals from Texas A&M, right? It just seems like they paid the players to come.
Yeah.
And then that's the transaction. It's like, well, if I do well, might I get more money? It's like, no, we already paid you enough, son. And it's like, all right, well, I already got the money. Now what am I doing? Losing to App State. That's your answer. They blame it on the quarterback. And I will say, Michigan's quarterback controversy thing that they've been going through, it's pretty clear that when JJ was in, he's the guy. I said it before the season even started. I think the competition, I don't want to say it was a setup by Harbaugh, but to me it feels like, hey, I know JJ is going to be the guy, and I said it in the offseason. Let's let Cade start the first game, so he's like happy and sticking around, and then JJ is going to start the second game, and he's going to start every game after it. Because otherwise, why would you give the up-and-coming guy a start right away, right? You would have did it the traditional, we're going to rotate whatever, or we're going to rotate quarters or halves. I think, was it Iowa that did that when we went to that Pitt game with Ricky Stanzi? And it's like, why are you taking Stanzi out and putting that other guy back in when he's clearly done jack shit? And then Pitt beat him, and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? Why did we even go to this? That's why when people make fun of Brian Ferentz, Matt, it hurts because like Kirk Ferentz is like my football dad. You grew up with the guy, he's been in like football forever. So I always like see him around. And then I wonder, like, if he was my real dad, I could just be calling on the offense and not even having to work on it. I just show up and I'm like, just like Madden, you know, take a few weeks off, show up, and you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to win conservatively by punting. I don't have to do anything else. Just win the game. But then you lose to your rival, and it's like, oh, everyone wants you to get fired. They were doing cameos where the people were paying Bob Stoops to give a message to Brian Ferentz. Like, Brian, we know you're in the family business of being an Iowa Hawkeyes coach. He didn't say the Hawkeyes part because he didn't know. And it's like, if you want to go back to New England, that's great. And then someone was like spoofing it so it looked like Ferentz was saying it himself. But they did get Fran McCaffrey too, the Iowa basketball coach, which is just as funny. Because like honestly, if you're reading cameos, you probably have a bunch of them in your inbox. You look through to find like the highest paid ones. I would imagine you read them like 10 in a row and send them out. So you're probably not even caring. You're like, hey, this Brian guy's having tough time at work. I'll read it. And then little do you know, everyone's laughing at you. But maybe Stoops knew, right? I don't know.
That'd be even funnier if he did know.
I do have one thing. So I was surprised that Florida State didn't move up into the pools, like I said, because I figured they didn't play. They'll be knocking on the door. They beat Louisville. They'll be there. But, Matt, we had the Notre Dame effect, right? Marshall beats Notre Dame. So you have to keep Notre Dame ranked. So Marshall has to jump Florida State, right? And then I saw some real mind games coming. The 0-1 App State beat A&M. So you can't just unrank A&M, right? That doesn't make sense. No, you have to rank North Carolina and App State and A&M, right? Because you can't just be a sheep and put A&M ranked so high because ESPN tells you to. Otherwise, what kind of pool voter are you? It makes no sense. And North Carolina has not looked good. So it's like, all right. They're already calling for Gene Chiswick's job down here. But meanwhile, the pollsters are like, nope, that's a ranked team if I've ever seen one. Not that you gave up 63 points, which is crazy because like they were scoring at will on App State. And then, boom, you flip it around, and they're there. They're not even scoring on A&M. A&M can't score at all on them. It was like really weird. It was like the opposite of the UNC game. So UNC beat Georgia State by a touchdown. And you think that deserves to get ranked? Wasn't Georgia State just moved up like a couple years ago?
Well, I think it's been a little bit longer than you realize.
Probably, because I really don't pay attention to them. But I will tell you this, Matt. They are 0-2, and they lost to South Carolina like 35-14. And South Carolina themselves isn't that good. So if South Carolina's bad, right, and they lost to Arkansas 44-30, and so then you put them down. They're better than Georgia State. UNC somewhere in between, right? Just based on the scores. But then you have that A&M loss to App State, and so you have to shove the Tar Heels up. You're like, I can only go up with this team. So like I can almost imagine like the mental gymnastics some of these pollsters are doing, where it's like, buddy, just unrank A&M. Very easy. Very easy. That's all you have to do. All you have to do. So I think next week, if Florida State goes in, then you don't have that cluster ahead of them. Because, like, honestly, dude, so Oregon or Texas A&M stays at 24. Then you have Oregon. Then the others receiving votes are, and I kid you not, Marshall, Cincinnati, App State, Kansas State, North Carolina, then Mississippi State, Oregon State, and Florida State. So they have Oregon State jump them for beating Wisconsin. They have Mississippi State jump them for beating, I think they're on light. I don't even know which team they ended up beating. But what did you think of all those upsets this past week?
I mean, it was very surprising to see a lot of those happen. But like I said, even with all those losses, I didn't think that Florida State they were gonna force that situation of like making them earn their rankings, and then that first loss, they'll fall so fast out of the rankings it'll make your head spin. You know, I think it's funny that you look at like LSU still being ranked, like justifying that, ranking A&M, justifying that. Like, there's no reason A&M loses to App State, and I'm not saying anything negative about App State because I think they're a good football program, but you're supposed to be a playoff contending team. you can't lose to App State.
It's as devastating as Pitt losing to Western Michigan last year.
Yes.
I know App State people think they're better because they beat Michigan and now Texas A&M, so they're going to put them ahead of what they would put Western Michigan. I honestly think A&M has a better chance of making the playoffs now compared to Pitt last year. Obviously, they're going to have a tougher schedule, like they'd have to beat Alabama and all these other teams. But I will say the App State one, people know App State because of the Michigan game, and they respect them for it. People like make fun of Michigan, but now like so much in the future, no one really bats an eye at that anymore. They're like, oh yeah, App State, they could beat you. They're pretty good. They should be 2-0. They should have beat UNC because UNC giving up 60-something points is ridiculous. But of course, when you're playing that type of high tempo, that's a big one. But the Big Ten, we talked about Iowa sucking. They lose. Wisconsin loses, so they have to throw Penn State in the ranking. They weren't ranked last week. I think Oregon and Texas are their teams. Texas, hey, we lost. Let's rank you. Right?
Well, it was they didn't get blown out.
They were back almost. Quinn Ewers looked good, and then I was thinking like, man, I wish Michigan had a guy that could throw the ball like that. And then I saw JJ just throwing deep throws, and I'm like, oh, I guess we do. And then I'm like thinking, oh, please don't get hurt. Don't be like Ewers. But then Texas's backup was actually pretty good, and I thought this is good. They're there. Alabama, the weird like no safety grounding call was weird to me.
I think that flipped part of the game.
I thought that it should have been a safety. I know that he was on the guy, but there wasn't a receiver where the ball landed, I think. And in college, it's different than the NFL. Like the NFL, you just see him like throw it at the running back's feet or like at the lineman's feet, like right there. In college, I think it has to pass the line of scrimmage and there has to be a guy there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it did because it was clear that he was getting drilled into the ground. And they threw the 2 penalties both on Texas as a way, I think, to just get out of the situation. It was weird because it wasn't a targeting. It wasn't anything like that. He was falling and trying to throw. If he goes down, there's no hit, like a targeting hit at all. That was all on the quarterback trying to get away from a safety. And instead of rewarding Texas for it, they rewarded Alabama. And then it kind of flipped the game. And it was like, all right, well, Alabama's going to come down and make the game-winning field goal like later in the game, and they did. And I was like, not surprised, but they win by 1. People are still ranking them number 1 in the coaches poll, which is just dumb. Like, let's be honest, just get rid of the coaches poll. The coaches poll in history has meant nothing. People are like, well, the coaches, they're experts. They know more. They don't watch the games. No one with a brain right now would vote Alabama over Georgia. You just wouldn't. Georgia has looked way better. And that's why it's like the same thing with like the coaches poll has Clemson above Michigan, and it's been like that. They haven't moved it. I know Michigan hasn't played anybody. Clemson's offense has not looked good. I don't know if you've watched them. You're talking about Florida State maybe being back. I honestly wouldn't be that afraid of Clemson. If I was a fan of another team in the ACC, I would say this could be our year to really take it to them because their offense looks like it's a mess. I would not vote them as the number 4 team. I would honestly have USC above them. USC, I know Lincoln Riley's been there for only a little bit. They look like Oklahoma of old. I would have my top 10 would be Georgia, then maybe Alabama. Ohio State hasn't looked good either, so I think just on talent, you keep those 3 as they were. Georgia number 1, Bama 2, Ohio State 3. Get a loss in them, then they can fall. Michigan, I think, has been the clear number 4. I think USC has been the clear number 5. And you could say the same for both of them. USC beat up on Stanford, so maybe you could have them a little bit higher than Michigan, but Michigan made the playoffs last year and has a quarterback that has been looking good. And honestly, I think Michigan looks better this year than they did last year. So I would keep them at 4. USC at 5. Clemson and Oklahoma, I'm not sold on either of them. I just think they have to be there. whatever port you want to put them, we can keep them as is. Clemson, then Oklahoma, and then I think Oklahoma State. After that, I'm not really sure how you go with the last two top 10 teams. Honestly, I would almost put BYU there. They came in at number 12. I watched a bit of that game, fell asleep again. They went to overtime. So, of course, I missed the best part. But they beat Baylor, and I was high on Baylor coming in, right?
Yeah.
So they score the touchdown. Now they play at Oregon. If it was me, let's go. Rank them in the top 10. I know Oregon, they're there at 1-1. They got killed by Georgia. They were high in the beginning of the year. If BYU beats them, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be like 9 right now. Michigan State had the slow start. They're ahead of them. Arkansas, possibly. Kentucky beat Florida. But are we really sold on Florida? Like, what do you think? Like, that's my thing here. Yeah, Florida beat Utah. Utah's been solid. But to me, last year was an anomaly for them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a top 10 team, to be honest, in terms of talent. So if you have Utah like in the teens, yeah, Florida beat them. Great. Florida also loses to Kentucky. To me, I think they should be right around that same slot, like in the mid-teens or whatever. But I don't think they should be top 10. But again, looking in terms of just record and who teams have beat, I think that's your only go-to, right? It doesn't feel like there's a lot of undefeated teams this year, this early in the year, when normally there are.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely had a lot of people fall off in the early part, but I almost think that in some ways is good because as the season unfolds, I think those top teams are going to separate themselves as you get into those conference slates.
Well, let's cut it here, and we'll go to the extended for the rest of the college talk. But I do think coming into this week, we're gonna get some clarity. Where if we start to see more undefeated teams, I'm just surprised at how many or how little there are right now. But thanks for listening. If you want to get the extended one, sign up for the Patreon. You can go to southboundsports.com. I have a link in the header there. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.